I made this pretty crochet dress, but I realized I needed a nice slip to go up under it. So I'm going to show you how I made a really nice slate gray full slip to go up under this dress. To make my slip, I've chosen a 4-way stretch fabric. And what I mean by 4-way stretch, that means it stretches horizontally and it stretches vertically. I'm using an existing camisole top and an existing half slip, and I'm going to take the two, combine them together to give me a long slip. The bulk of all of the instructions will be coming from the top. So I turned it on the wrong side. In this particular slip pattern, there are 2 side panels on the front, and then you got the center front. And when you flip it over on the back, you just have 2 panels. Taking the center and putting the center front on the fold. Now mind you, that's sticking out. I'm going to do a V. Now if you notice, I put a pin right here on the front because that's the actual waistline. You're taking the skirt, fold it in half, line the skirt up with the waist section. I want to make sure that I have a small seam allowance on here. So I'm just going to leave about a 1/2 inch. Now I've also found out what the length I want. So I've already extended. So this is where you want to extend your length and make it as long as you need to. Now that we've got that marked, we can remove the slip because we no longer need it because we got our chalk markings here. You can pin this in place. So now that we've got the bodice pinned in place, and you can see your seam comes up and then it curves around like so. I'm going to take a chalk pencil and I'm going to put a mark right here. And that lets me know that's the end. And then right here, I'm going to put a mark right here. I'm going to go ahead and chalk out the neckline because I do want the V-neck. Now remember, we're going to stop it about right here because that's where the strap gets smaller. So we're going to go across right here. We're going to take that and curve it around because we know here is where it's coming in. This is the armhole. So here's the armhole. So you can put a little mark right there. So now what we're going to do, we're going to remove this, and now you can see the markings that were made. I want to use a heavier chalk so you can see my lines a little better. So now you can see the lines. This is the front, this is the shoulder seam. So here are the lines. And as you see, that was that line that came out. So I'm going to bring this out like that, and then our line is going to come out. We're going to work with the side front, so I'm just going to do a line. You see the second line, this line is for the side piece that's going to butt up with this. And the reason you're doing this is because it'll give you a chance to shape the bust and also how it goes in to shape the waist and then come back out for the hips. Now as far as the width of the side, so we know that that section from the bust area, that where the side bust joins the front bust, we know that that measurement is 3.5 inches. So also we want to measure down to where the armhole is. I'm going to put a piece of paper here just to give you an idea of what I'm talking about here. So we need to find the depth since it's kind of hard to lay that down. You could put a mark here and draw a line over here across and draw a line like this. Okay? See, from the shoulder over to right here, and then draw a line like that. So what I did is I found the point for the front and the point for the side, and where they met, I did a cross line, and this is what you're going to cut right here. So I cut this piece out. I want you to see where this piece goes. It butts up right there. So see how it tells me exactly what the width, it almost becomes a pattern. So we know that where it's going to stop is right here. So I'm going to flip it over because it's on the wrong side, right? And I'm going to put it right there. See what happens? And when I do that, now I can draw out the side. And see how now it gave me a perfect width to let me know how this armhole is going to match up to this one. Now that that portion has been done, you can actually take this section, bring it up, and now you have a pattern to help you to finish out drawing the rest of the top. We're going to put a mark right here to let us know that that's the side. See, that matches up with that. And we're going to go out 1/2 inch. Now we also know that here's our mark. We're right about here in the middle. So I'm going to put my finger there. I'm going to roll it back. And I'm going to put a chalk mark right there. Okay. Then I'm going to do the same thing here. I'm going to roll it back. And I'm going to put a chalk mark right there. So now what we have is we have some markings to let us know how to connect the dots, so to speak. So because I'm doing a 5/8, a 1/2 inch rather, I'm going to draw my lines out. So here you see we've got the front drawn out. We have the side front drawn out. So the only thing left now is the back. So to cut the back, as you can see, the back only has one seam down the middle. Rather than put these straps at the top, I'm going to tuck these in because I'm going to do a regular thin spaghetti strap, and I'm going to pin this in place. So now we've got a straight section across the back, and I'm going to go ahead and line this up here. Now actually when you look at this, you can almost see where the waist is. We're going to line the skirt up so that it's laying on top of the waist section. And you notice that the back is going to be a little shorter because we don't have all that excess at the top. It's just going to be a spaghetti strap. So you can see the back is done. And here's the curve of the waist to go into the hip. And you're going to probably have also that same curve right here in the back. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and do a little arch in the back. Now what's left to do is cut it out. All the pieces have been cut out. Here's the front. Here's the side front. And of course, here is the back. To figure out the length of the strap, remember we cut the back off right across here. So that's our line to start. So we're going to measure from here. And you're going to measure all the way over, across the shoulder. And I'm measuring right down to where the fabric starts to get big. And that's about 15 inches is where it starts to get big. So I'm going to cut my straps 16 inches. I'm going to do an extra inch. We know that we need to cut 16 inches in our strap. So I'm going to cut 1.5 inches. Of course, I'm going to take this and fold this up. And I'm going to do the quick cut. Then I'm going to take the measuring tape. Don't worry about this little piece here. Take the measuring tape and I'm going to cut 1.5 inches right here. So now that our strap is done, we're ready to start pinning our pieces together. We're going to take the front piece. So now I'm going to take one of the fronts, the side fronts, and I'm going to lay them down right sides together. So to pin that, I'm going to put a pin at the top, and then I'm going to flip it over. Because whenever you're pinning a bodice, side front and a front, you notice that the side front has a curl and the front has a dip. So you want to always pin with the curl on the bottom. I'm going to go all the way down to the bottom of the hem. And I'm going to start pinning these two pieces together at the bottom because we know they match up perfectly at the bottom. So I'm going to start pinning from the bottom. And then when I get to the waistline, that's when I'm going to stop because there's something different we need to do. You actually have more fabric on that outer side front than you do on that inner curl on the center front. So you're just going to take it and I'm going to do what I call easing, or what is called easing. Easing is, you see that fabric lays straight, but easing is I slightly pull one and push the other. And you see how you get a little bit of a pucker? And then you want to pin that. So when you go to sew it, you stretch it like this and it gives you an ease and it lays flat. So this is what you would do until you completely finish meeting the other pins. Here's the side that I pinned. And you can see on the side front, you got all the little curly cues. That's fine because when you stitch it, it's going to be straight. Now the back doesn't have to have a whole lot of fitting because it's already on the right side. You just find your section. That's your center back. And this was our center back because it had just a little bit of an arch. So you're going to sew these two straight down the middle. And then you'll come back and put the sides together. Here's the center back of the back of the slip. So I'm just going to take this and I'm going to sew them right sides together. Now mind you, we are sewing knit, so when you're sewing knit, you have to make sure you're using rounded ballpoint needle. You can check out my video on the difference in needles. And I'm just going to sew a 1/2 inch seam allowance. Now when I stitch, I'm also using the longest stitch possible. I've stitched the center back, and by using that stretch type of stitch or the loosest stitch, see when I stretch it, the stitching doesn't pop. So that's the back of our slip. Here are the fronts. Here's the center front here, and here's the side front. When you sew, you want to make sure that the side front is on the bottom, or the side that has all the little puckers. You want it on the bottom because the feed dogs will grab it and smooth it out as you're sewing. Now I've come to the section that has the little curls in it. So when I sew it, I'm just going to stretch, and see when I stretch, you don't see anything. So you want to sew it, stretch it as you sew. So here I've got the side front attached to the front, and when you flip it over on the underside, you can see the little puckers, but when you flip it over, it's smooth. So we're going to take the back and just lay the back on the front. And remember, because we're doing a lower back, you're just going to pin it together at the sides, and you're going to sew straight down. Now what I like to do is I always like to put the back on the bottom so that the feed dogs grab the bottom. But when you sew the sides, because this is going to take a lot of stress, you can actually do this on all your seams. But as you sew, I want you to stretch it like this while it's going under the machine. What that will do, that'll give you even more stretch, so that when you stretch, your stitches won't pop. That'll give the stitches even more elasticity to match up with the fabric itself. Let me show you what I'm talking about. So now that I have it on the machine, I'm going to pull like this and sew. Okay, the sides have been done. So now we want to do the finishing edges. Now remember, at the top we're doing a spaghetti strap. So that means we need to thin this out, because we only want just enough to grab the spaghetti strap top. To make the straps, I'm going to use the same technique, turn it, and I'm going to sew as thin as possible because I want a thin strap. So I'm doing about a 3/8 inch seam allowance. And when I do the straps, I'm going to stretch them too as I sew. By stretching the strap when I sew, it allows the strap to stretch just like this on the body without it popping any of the stitches. So here are my straps. I got little small spaghetti straps. And I find it easier to do the straps in the back first, because then you can always pull them over and pin yourself. So I'm going to put the strap, and you don't want to put them in the center because they don't normally sit that way. I'm going to set them off, and I'm going to pin one side of the strap in. And in the same location, I'm going to pin the other one. Now this is one of those times where you want to measure and make sure that your straps are at the same distance. And then you're just going to stitch right across. The straps are sewn in, and I did a back stitch to secure them in place really good. Now this is where you want to try on your slip, because remember, we got to center it, and then we got to cut this excess off so that this is a little more pointed. Now that I've tried my slip on, so I went ahead and pinned where mine are going to stop. I'm going to take a measuring tape or my seam gauge, and I'm going to measure down 5/8. So I'm going to roll it down right there, and I'm going to now take it out because I know where the mark is. Now we're going to use them as a pattern to tailor the front section down to meet the back. So I'm going to put a pin right here on this side of the strap, and I'm going to put a pin right here on the other side of the strap. So that tells me that's the width of my strap, so I've got to get rid of all this extra fabric. So what I'm going to do is turn it this way so that it's upside down to me so I can cut it. So now I know that I'm going to do a simple turn up, and my turn up is probably going to be about 3/8 of an inch, which will put my turn up or my hem right here. So that means I'm going to be cutting off a 1/2 inch off the front. And if I'm going to be doing a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance on, or hem on this side, then I'm going to be cutting off 1 inch. So I'm going to cut 1 inch off of the outside and 1/2 inch off the inside. When I get back to my V, I want to kind of like taper so I'm not cutting as much off the V. Now that the front has been cut down, we're going to turn the slip and we're going to have the front on the outside. You're going to take the strap and you're going to wrap it around the back of the slip and bring it around to the front. Make sure you're not twisting it. Find your mark. There's our mark there. And you're going to put that mark at your 5/8 inch seam allowance. So our 5/8 is right there, and that's where that mark is. And you're going to pin it in place. And here you can go ahead and cut off the excess strap. To make sure that your straps are the same length, you cut them the same. So the piece that you cut off of this one over here, you're going to cut that same amount off of this strap. And now you don't have to measure, but you just take the pin out and slide this back down to the top. Because now you know that your straps are even on both sides. The straps have been sewn in now. To hem it, I'm going to take the strap and I'm going to push it down like this, and I'm going to roll over one part of the strap, the side on that one, and roll the other part over just like that. And by doing this, what this is doing, it's sealing in that strap and just making the outside nice and pretty. And you're going to stitch them again. Just as you just stitched the strap down, you're now going to stitch those seams on top of it so that we can hem it. So now the strap has been sewn. So now you simply just turn it, and when you turn it, the fabric already wraps back around. And then that's what your strap looks like once it's been flipped over. And to hem our slip, since it's already turned in on this one side, we're just going to roll in like the 3/8, and I'm just going to do a zigzag stitch across. When you get to the strap in the back, you don't want to sew it this way so that the strap gets caught up. You want to pull the strap toward the machine over here, lay the seam down flat, and while it's flat, stitch over the strap as well as the hem. Now that your back is done, to do the front, you want to put a little clip right in the middle, because that's where your 3/8 seam allowance is, and you want to be able to turn this so that you'll have a complete V. When you get to the V, you're going to come down and you're going to pull the other side over. So if you want to, you can go ahead and pin that one in place. And then you're going to pin the second one in place and come back up. So now that completes the neckline. And see, we still have the V. It's not so sharp anymore, but it's more of a kind of a rounded V. And it pretty much keeps its shape. Now hopefully when you tried this on for size, you went ahead and adjusted your hem. So you're going to do the same thing on the bottom. And you can make your hem as deep or as small if you want. I'm going to make mine a little deeper than I did with the neckline, so I'll probably do like 3/4 of an inch and just zigzag that all the way around as well. Now the hem, I'm using a much wider zigzag because I have a bigger hem. And now that completes the hem. And as you can see, the hem is a nice zigzag as well. So I'm going to go press the under seams down, and then I'm going to put it on the mannequin and let you see how it turned out. Now here's our finished slip. Of course it doesn't fit the mannequin like it does me, but it fits me perfectly and it's going to look nice up under my dress. I hope that this tutorial on how to make a simple full-length underslip has been helpful, and I hope that you try it. Happy sewing!